Welcome back to Clooney Garage, it's Fred here. In today's episode, we're going to show you how to service your car for less than $100. Duck's guts. Alright, so we're working on the mighty Hyundai Getz today. Australia's finest in automotive performance. Not. But this is what you're going to need to service your car. Now, I managed to go to Super Cheap Auto and they had a 30% sale. So that's how I got all these consumables less than $100. Starting with our Castrol oil, with the Ryco filter to match, an air filter, spark plugs that are already gapped, a really important sump plug and washer, because ours is actually leaking. And the other bits and pieces I've got stuff that I've had lying around the shed. So this isn't included in the $100. So we're about to do an oil flush as part of the oil change. We'll throw some injector cleaner in and we might need to top up our power steering fluid. So let's get started with the engine flush. All right, with the engine flush, we're using our Penrite oil flush. Now, this is not a good idea if your car has done a squillion kilometres and you haven't been changing your oil regularly, but we have, and it's probably about time that we actually do it. And the good thing about this is that bottle, because we've got a 3.5 litre oil sump capacity, that bottle will actually do us for 2 flushes. So we're only going to use half that bottle. Now the instructions are, warm the car up to about 5 minutes, get the oil temperature at least some way, starting to get some temp in it. Put your oil flush cleaner into our oil filler cap here. Run the car for 10 minutes. That'll dislodge any other sludge that's in the galleries, etc. Then we're going to drain the oil, then do the filter, and then put our new oil in. So let's get started. All right, so our engine is up to temperature. And we will chuck in some of our dear old Penrite. Now, we're only going to use half, as I may have mentioned. It's about a third. It goes in just the top of the rocker cover here. Now, as I mentioned, don't do this if your oil is super dirty or if it's never been changed, because this could totally sludge your motor and ruin it. And we've seen some YouTube episodes about that. But let's warm the car up, 10 minutes, get it up to temperature, then we're going to drop the oil. All right, our little Getz is purring away here. Pretty healthy sounding engine this little Getz. There's no ticking or knocking noises. It's because we've been maintaining it after Nonna donated it to us. So it sounds good. So as I mentioned, get it up for 10 minutes. And listen to this beautiful dump pipe. It's Sebastian Lowy there, and look at Charlie ripping into a bone out there. Loving it. So if you're wondering how to get the right oil filters and air filters and spark plugs for your car, you don't know where to start, Super Cheap Auto, I've got a very helpful tablet system. You go in there, type in either your rego or the details of your car, and it'll tell you all the products you need. So that's what we've done to make sure we've got the right filters and everything. And they give you a few options too. If you don't want to buy Bosch and you want to go with another brand, or if you don't want Castrol, you want to go Penrite, it's up for you, to make that selection. The good thing is you can make sure you get all the right oils and filters so you don't stuff up. Okay, so next step is to jack your car up, and safety first. Always use a couple of jacks and some jack stands under the chassis rails. Don't jack it up on the sills like young Frankie does. Now, this is why servicing your car is so important. Have a look at the little bit of oil there. I reckon our sump plug, which is just over here, has actually got a washer that's leaking. Or in fact, the washer may not even be operable, so time to fix it. This is good fun. So always use an oil pan that's nice and clean, and that way you can always check the colour of your oil as it comes out. You've got to watch hot exhaust and stuff here, and hot oil obviously, given that we've just been running the car. And this one should hopefully, I'll be able to find out whether or not this washer is still intact or whether it's even got an. So we'll just let that oil drain out there. It looks very clean because we've only just had it serviced recently anyways. It'll be very interesting to see after the engine flush what has come out here. Okay, so our oil is out. It looks remarkably clean. no milkiness or other contaminants in there. So good thing we did flush as well. And I think I found the culprit of our leak on our sump plug. So this is the original one that I just pulled out. Not only is it a bit machined on the edges and all that sort of stuff here, from obviously some less than careful mechanics dropping the oil previously in its life. Look at the washer. It's all pitted. Can you see that? So no wonder it's not getting a nice seal to the bottom of the sump there. And here's the aftermarket one that I've just ordered. A nice machined finish on the base of the washer, and I think that's going to seal a heap better. So no wonder it was leaking. And this is what a lesson here. Always replace your sump plug and washer when you're doing your oil, because if that's what your original OEM one looks like after God knows how many oil changes, no wonder you're not leaving oil all over the show. Look at that. Terrible. Okay, our next little hack for your $100 service is to change your oil filter. Now, these are notoriously difficult to get off, particularly if someone's tightened them up, you know, like nobody's business. You can go with like a ratchet strap sort of handle. I find these never work. I end up throwing this one on the side of the garage out of anger most of the time. But the best thing to do is get one of these little ratchet spanners, and that fits on the end of your filter like so. And they're very specific to the shape of the filter, so again, super cheap will fix you up with one of those. That goes on that, square drive on your ratchet, and away you go. Let's get stuck into it. Now the thing about oil filter locations, they're always in the world's worst spot. So we've got this massive sort of shroud in here. I don't really want to take that on and off. And then our oil filter is in here. So we're going to fit our little spanner ratchet on the back of the filter. And what do you know? We can unwind it. And I need two hands of this next bit. All right, when you've got your new oil filter, always make sure that that rubber seal is seated in nicely. We just took the plastic cover off ours and ours fell out, so you don't want to start screwing that in and have a unmounted rubber seal. The other trick is, grab your old sump oil, grab a bit on your finger, and apply that as a slight film on the edge of the rubber seal. And then that way, you've got something that mounts nicely against. Also, when you're putting your oil filter back in, don't use your ratchet spanner to tighten it up. You can only just go by hand. So we'll just chuck ours on. There's no need to tighten the thing up, because otherwise you'll be stuck in the situation like we were before. So spin him on. When it gets tight, just go 3/4. Okay, oil filter's on. Sump plug is plugged in with a nice new washer. Time to put in some new oil. And this typically is a two-hand job. Make sure you use a funnel. Make sure you clean the inside of your funnel before you go. And also clean your dipstick as well, because your dipstick might still have residue of your old oil in there. And you want it to be totally clean so you can see the new oil coming up. The Getz takes 3.5 litres. Let's go. All right, now that our oil is done, we've just checked the level. And we're going to start the car up to make sure we get oil into that oil filter, and then check your dipstick again and maybe add a spridge more. Now it's time to do the spark plugs. So with spark plugs, typically you've got a cover that you've got to remove to access them. Then you get onto your boots. With a bit of persuasion, they come out. And your spark plugs are way down in there. And for our Hyundai Getz, we just need a 5/8 spark plug socket. Goes down in there. You can feel it bite. Get your ratchet onto that, pull them out. So this is good fun on a public holiday. And when you're pulling out your spark plugs, they shouldn't be in super tight, so just go easy on them. I normally start them with the ratchet, and then just with your extension, you can hand turn them, and they should come out pretty easy. I've never actually broken off a spark plug. I've heard about people that have. And there you go. There's one, just like I bought one. Okay, always a good idea to have a look how your spark plugs look. Make sure there's no excessive fouling. They're our old ones. So that's how the electrodes look. And that's the new one. We've got new Bosch ones. So they're NGKs, these are Bosch's. And a very different electrode design on these ones. And according to the helpful people at Supercheap, these Bosch ones have all been gapped according to Hyundai specifications. So it's actually the reverse process of putting them in as getting them out. Let's get stuck into it. Okay, so once you've refitted your spark plugs, they're all nice and snug, hand tightened, and a little bit of a turn of the ratchet. Then you've got to put your boots back on. Now with your boots, try not to put the wrong lead in the wrong plug, otherwise you have all sorts of misfiring action here. And the good thing is, if you've been doing them, typically the lead lengths go to the cylinder bank, so we should be right. And they go in just like so. Once your coil leads are all back on, ignition leads, you might need to undo your oil filler cap to then get your cover back on. So we'll do that presently. Next stop, air filter. Now, depending on what sort of manufacturer car you've got, most have got this sort of airbox style here, little circlips holding in that, and it's standard panel filter. Let's go. Now, this is going to be definitely difficult with only one hand, but you can pull that panel filter out and then chuck the new one in. So again, we'll show you a bit of a before and after comparison here. So that's the old air filter that we put in, only about sort of 3 months ago as well, so it's holding up pretty well. And that's the newie. So look at the colour difference. So they're doing this job. So let's go bung the new filter in. So it's always good doing stuff with one hand, but there's the new filter. You can see chucked in there. Now I'll just clip the airbox away, we'll be laughing. So these clips are pretty easy. One on that side, one on that side, and she's done. The good thing is our car's also got a sticky here when the timing belt was done. So I won't be doing that in a service video. That's for a bit later. All right, the final part of our service today is the fuel system. So we're actually going to use a petrol injection cleaner. So that just goes straight into a fresh tank of fuel, and it starts to clean the injectors. So this stuff, Engineering Explained talk a lot about this stuff. It's an awesome YouTube channel. But previously you used to have to run, you know, injection sort of cleaners and through nozzles and stuff. This stuff, just as good. And it's as easy as getting a full tank of fuel that's fresh, getting Old Mate, and chucking Old Mate in. How good's that? Look at Old Mate. He's been on the terps all night. All right, they reckon you should use one of those bottles every 3,000 kilometres. So we're going to keep an eye on that, because we haven't had a huge amount of problem with injection issues or anything like that. But it's got to be better than not having it at all. Well, final step often gets neglected is to take the car off the jack stands, make sure it starts, check the oil again, and go for a test drive. All right, the final step, as I mentioned, before you go for the test drive is to make sure the car starts, because you've been taking spark plugs and stuff out. Make sure with your air filter you haven't triggered an engine light or a sensor. Let's go. Very nice. No warning lights. Sounds good. I think we're past the first test. Okay, so I'm going to warm the car up, then check the oil, because obviously oil has to get back into that new oil filter, and then we'll check it again, go for a test drive, make sure everything's all good, double check our tyre pressures. That's another key thing to do on your regular service. So hopefully we've shown you, for less than $100, if you're an astute Super Cheap member and know how to know when they've got 30% sales on, you can service your car for less than $100. It takes a little bit of your time. It's taken me about an hour. I'm not the fastest mechanic in the world, but I'm pretty effective. This car's ready to go, and the reason we're doing this service is that Frankie and I are going to take this car into a challenge at our local racetrack, and we're going to try and race for 6 hours straight. So keep your car serviced and you can be like us.